Hello, welcome to another edition of Ask the Pastor, where you send in your questions and Pastor Appleton and I try to answer them. Rick, we have a really easy one this week. It's who are the two witnesses in Revelation chapter 11?
Okay, so the two witnesses in Revelation chapter 11, and I think one of the first things we have to decide is, are these two witnesses two literal witnesses, two literal men, or are they a symbol of something else? And if we're considering it to be literal witnesses, it could be, some have said maybe it's Enoch and Elijah. Remember, those are two men who never died. Others have said it's Elijah and Moses, because Elijah and Moses did similar signs and wonders to these people described here. Still, some others said it could be people whom John himself knew, maybe some other Christians in the first century. In fact, one popular view for a long time was that it was St. Peter, and St. Paul, the apostle to the Jewish church and the apostle to the Gentile church. However, some have said, well, Revelation is a very symbolic book, and many of these descriptions are symbolical. And so the two witnesses can either stand for the Old and the New Testaments, or the Jewish and the Gentile church, or perhaps the church in all ages, because they are God's witnesses who are kings and priests. Now, I think any conclusion we come to here has to be somewhat tenuous. It is admittedly a difficult thing to work out. If I were really pressed, I would say this. At the very least, it stands for God's people, the church, who are God's witnesses in this age. And the thing that I think really should stand out about this is that the church is God's people. Whether it's just two men or the whole church, we are the witnesses to the world, and the world's response to our witness is to persecute us and kill us. That's the best that I can do on that one.
Well, I'd like to wrap it up without saying anything, but I'll just throw in my 2 cents as well. And I agree, we really can't say definitively who these two people are, if they are indeed two people. If you had to push, if I had to say what I think it most likely is, I would lean towards the Jewish and Gentile church, the church in all of the ages, bearing witness to God and being hated and persecuted by God, even as Israel was during its whole existence, and even as the church is hated and sometimes killed in a sense, and hurt. And yet God always raises the church back up, and the church will be taken up into heaven, even though she does suffer the wrath of the beast, as those two witnesses is. My other point of view would be that it would be two actual people at the time of the end that God would raise up to be prophets, to prophesy to the world as the second coming was about to come and the world had descended into great sin and evil. I could see that interpretation as well. In that case, it would just be two Christians that God would call, and they are called prophets, and so they are prophesying about what's going to happen to the wicked if they don't repent. Well, that's all I have for you at this time, so that's Ask the Pastor. Send in your questions, and we will do our best to answer them.